Earlier this week, we looked at The Accountant. Today, we're looking at The Accountant 2, which is now in theaters, directed by Gavin O'Connor, starring Ben Affleck, Jon Bernthal, and Cynthia Addai Robinson. This movie is about Christian Wolff using his brilliant mind and his illegal methods to reconstruct the unsolved puzzle of a Treasury chief's murder. So we're going to dive into this movie, and if you, as a Christian, should watch it right now. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. The Accountant 2 is rated R for some strong violence and language throughout. So we're going to go over any convictions that might prevent you from watching this movie, any theological themes present within The Accountant 2, and wrap it up with a personal review from yours truly. Without further ado, let's head into the Christian Conviction Meter. If this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that may prevent you from or distract you from your relationship with Jesus. We don't want to do that, so we're going to dive into violence and gore, lust, substances, profanity, and intense/horror scenes so you can figure out if The Accountant 2 is a good movie for you to watch. And starting off with violence and gore here, it does have a similar violence to, of course, the original. I would argue maybe just a little bit greater. There is, of course, a lot of shooting because of the use of guns within the film. There is plenty of deaths throughout the entire film, and of course, the shootings come from multiple different calibers, multiple different types of weaponry, multiple different ranges, from snipers to assault rifles to pistols, all that sort of stuff is contained within this movie. On top of that, there is some hand-to-hand combat. There is like a kitchen fight that also takes place within the film, and there is some stabbings here as well. On top of that, there is just a good amount of blood here and just kind of gore from cuts, scrapes, different wounds that come from falling on top of a car or getting shot or just dealing with different types of injuries that are present within this movie. On top of that, of course, it just really is a pretty violent film. It is an action film, and because it's also rated R, they do use a lot of the tendencies of those movies towards their advantage. So, of course, this one is going to be a 5 out of 5. Our next category is lust, and this is kind of a unique one in particular. The first thing up on this list is the fact that there is a scene of a guy just simply wearing just his boxers. So that is something to keep in mind. There is nothing sensual or suggestive about that. It's just how they decided to film him. On top of that, due to the more intense nature of this film and its subject matter, which we will get to in our last category here, there is some prostitution that is a part of this movie. Now, as I say that, I do want to preface the fact that there once again is no nudity or sensuality or really anything sexual contained within this movie. Most of what happens is some of our characters talking to some of those people who that is their job. So that is something, or their unwilling job, let's put it that way. So that is a part of the movie, but other than that, there really isn't anything of the lust specific variety. These are just things to keep in mind for you as you think through whether or not to watch this movie. It's going to be a 1 out of 5 for this category. Moving on to substances, there really isn't much in the way of drugs, although drug cartels are once again mentioned as part of the film. There is also a bit of tobacco smoking that is contained within the film. The most we see here is namely alcohol, namely in the way of just drinking beers, whether it's mainly all in a casual kind of environment. One of our characters does say that let's go get drunk, but there is no drunkenness contained within the film, which is a nice thing to note. But again, these things are present within the film, but it's not a abuse of any of these substances. So for those reasons, we'll give this a 2 out of 5. Our next category is profanity, and there is a whole bunch. This is a rated R movie, which means they're going to use a lot of the rated R words. Other than, of course, multiple F-bombs throughout the entire movie, there's use of the SH word, the DA word, and a few abbreviations of that, or versions of the DA word. The A word is used, the PU word is used, the BI word is used, and there's a lot of just words that are thrown out here, sometimes said one after the other. And so that is something to keep in mind. There is a good amount of language through this film, definitely more than the original film, so that is something to keep in mind. But again, because of the use of F-bombs, just purely on that, as well as our other words here, it is another 5 out of 5. Moving on to intense and horror sequencing, our final category, and this is not a horror film, which means there are no horror scenes contained within the movie. But I will say this is a much more intense movie than the original. I know our scale is out of a 5 out of 5 and, or 0 out of 5, excuse me, and obviously we rated the original as a 5 out of 5. This is still, I would say, more intense than the original film due to the heavy nature of what takes place. As I mentioned in the lust category, prostitution is a part of this film. It's not a dragged on sequence or super long. It's mainly just pure conversation with those who are unwillingly doing that job. At the same time, there also is children in camps. There once again is a lot of murder that is a part of the film. At the same time too, there is the abuse of humanity. A lot of what happens in this story is essentially dealing with people coming to America, trying to provide a better life, and some people who are on this side of the country abusing those looking for refuge and hope. And so that is a much more emotionally charged story. It's a much more intense story in that regard. And I want to take this next phrase, this next part, that really is the big driving focus of the story and is easily the most intense part about the story, very graciously. It does deal with the events and the unfortunate part of human trafficking. That is a big component within the film. And so obviously human trafficking looks in many different ways, and I'll do my best to make sure to include a link down to the website for just information on human trafficking in particular, in case you want to learn more about how you can help some of these causes, because obviously it is a unfortunate part of our world, but that is a part of this movie, and it does not go into, I'd say, an abusive detail, but again, it is a prevalent part of the story. It is kind of a main driver, especially in the third act of the film, so that is something to keep in mind. It is once again a 5 out of 5 on this category. So our grand total on the conviction meter is a 18 out of 25. Like I said, this is a pretty intense film full of a lot of different violence and language, hence why I got the rated R rating. If any of these areas that we talked about in this section of the review says, hey, as much as I may have enjoyed the first one, some of the elements of the sequel don't really liken to my spirit that much. Don't worry about watching this film. Remember, we want to make sure that you are following Jesus to the best of your abilities here on earth. And so if any of these areas that we talked about, any of these subject matters, causes you to just feel uncomfortable or compromises your convictions in any way, don't worry about watching the film, and make sure to just be in line with the Holy Spirit and what He is telling you. And with that in mind, let's go over any theological themes that are present within The Accountant 2. And there really isn't much here, just like the first one. But I will say this, is that it does show the sin and brokenness of humanity because of the subject nature of human trafficking, because of the subject nature of prostitution, because of the subject nature of children in camps and separated from their families and all these other things. It is a harder kind of watch, but it does show the unfortunate realities of humanity, the brokenness of humanity. There's really nothing that deals specifically with Jesus, with the cross, with the church, the Bible, God himself. There is nothing here that is explicitly Christian, but it does show the brokenness of humanity, and that is something that is a prevalent part of the gospel story. Without the brokenness of humanity, Christ would not have had to come. So that is something to keep in mind, but once again, nothing here. Alrighty, since we've wrapped that up, it's on to the final part. What are my thoughts on The Accountant 2? This is a surprising film for me. I wasn't familiar with the franchise until earlier this week, and they take the elements that you love about the first one and expand it in this one, but also adding some new layers to keep this one unique from its original, but of course keeping the stuff that you love about the original Accountant film. Of course, this is a much darker and more intense movie compared to the original, again due to the nature of human trafficking that is a part of this story. But I do think the driving focus of that allows the story to be much more focused. They're all on one case rather than two separate stories of we have our U.S. Treasury trying to find who out the accountant is, while Christian Wolf is on his own thing. These two areas have joined together in one goal after one purpose to uncover and solve this puzzle. And so it just creates a more focused story, which I really appreciate. The action here is solid. The story is solid. It does deviate from the accounting side of things here, but the real standout of this film has to be Ben Affleck and Jon Bernthal. I mean, my goodness, it was amazing to watch. Just their chemistry was absolutely fantastic and blew me away. It was like watching a genuine brotherly relationship. The way they would dialogue back and forth with one another, the teasing that would occur from the younger brother to the older brother, it was just done so well. And it made me essentially want to see more of these two in particular because of how well their chemistry was. And it just made the film just so much better and so much greater than I anticipated. In fact, so much so that I would argue that this is actually a better film than the original, which 9 times out of 10, especially in the year 2025, that is never the case. Usually the original is better, and that's been that way since films started and since sequels have been produced. But this one is, I think, one of those cases where because of the certain elements of the story that they honed in and focused on, and the relationship dynamic between Christian and Braxton, that made this movie, made this story so much greater and so much better. It took the things you enjoy about the first one and not only expands it, but makes it better. And so for that reason, I give it an 8 out of 10. I actually really enjoyed this one, and so far, it's the highest rated movie of the year. So it's an 18 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It's an 8 out of 10 in our review. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things Accountant 2 down there, and while you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribe, all that good stuff. It just sends us out into the algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians so they can utilize their convictions to follow Jesus better. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. But before you go, there's a few video recommendations that YouTube is suggesting to you to watch if you want to head over there. One of them is our review of the original Accountant, so feel free to join us there, and we'll see you all in the next one.